Hello, Softball America. Gray Robertson here in Oklahoma City. Pleased to be sitting with a great ambassador for the sport, an Olympian, a legend, an All-American, and one of the people on the call tonight for the championship series, the great Michele Smith. Hi, Michele. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited about this championship series and everything that we've seen at the World Series. It's been pretty phenomenal for our sport. Ratings have been great. So
Yeah.
Can't lose, right?
Absolutely, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But I want to ask about today because we're hours now away from a first pitch between Texas and Texas Tech. What is today like for you as you get ready for that game?
So we have a production meeting coming up here in about 30 minutes, and the whole team will get together because we have graphics folks, we have tape folks, we have people that really support us to help make the show, the broadcast, what it is. It's not just a camera on a bunch of women playing softball. It's a massive production. So we all get on the same page, and that's what this meeting will do. And then I'll probably actually we have an ESPN wiffle ball game, which is going to be later on today. Hopefully the weather holds for that. We all go across from the hotel, and it's the one time the whole crew comes together. And last year we played the men versus women, boys versus girls. So it was great. It's just great team building for the ESPN team. And then, after that little bit of debauchery, we will we'll have a little bit of time to get ready, go up, shower, get ready, go early to the fields for hair, makeup, all that sort of stuff. And we're usually there at times before the teams even arrive at the stadium. So it's a really busy day. I mean, it's a busy 12 days at the World Series, but this is always a busy day as well.
All right, I have to ask about the wiffle ball game. So do you pitch? Like, who's been the shining star of the last few years?
It is funny. Sometimes they ask me to pitch. It used to be a slow pitch softball game, and they were like, Michele, you pitch. And I'm like, I don't know how to pitch slow pitch. But anyway, so yeah, it is kind of funny. Sometimes I pitch. We all trade positions. We do a little bit of everything. It's just a lot of fun getting everybody out there together and competing, because as you can imagine, we're all pretty competitive people.
Oh, I'm sure. And you've been here for many years. You've covered this event, as long as I can remember. You've seen basically everything that can happen in this sport. And you talked about how crazy this specific World Series has been. Like, how can you put into words what you've seen this year, especially in the context of what you've seen throughout your career covering the World Series?
Yeah, there's been a lot of uniques this year. A lot of, like, I thought I've seen everything, but I had not yet seen that types of plays. Obviously, the dirt ball off of Lindsey Grind's foot that kind of exploded, and just our ability to pick that up with our super slow-mos. How about a steal of home, right? How often do you hear that? Even in baseball, you don't hear that often, right? But in softball, you never hear it. So that was very unique. Walk-off home runs we've had, or just walk-offs in general. We've had a lot of tight, really competitive play. There's just been a lot of unfortunate challenges where the rules are a little ambiguous and are left to a little bit of judgment calls. So those are tough. A game, does it end? Does it end because a player misses home plate and then is assisted back to touch home plate? You never want a game to end like that. So, but then Tennessee ended up coming back and beating UCLA anyway. So, there's just a lot of very bizarre stuff that happened this year. People paying attention. Sometimes those stories are good because it makes people wake up and be like, wow, that's really unique. I've never seen that before. Well, I'm raising my hand. I haven't either.
Us too. Yeah, with the play in UCLA, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I got more texts from non-softball fans than I've ever gotten about a game, maybe since Montana's perfect game against UCLA. In situations like that, how do we as a sport make sure that for the new fans tuning in, that they don't get too easily confused or I guess turned off by a moment like that where we are digging into the rule book and searching out Appendix G?
Right, and that was just a very bizarre play, because even earlier in that game, there was the infield fly that was very difficult to see and call because the infielder was actually in the outfield on the grass, right? So that kind of confuses people. They're like, wait, they're not on the infield. How's that an infield fly? Well, the rule book actually says if an infielder is underneath trying to attempt the catch. So it's just very bizarre stuff, and they are going to probably have to go back and tighten up those rules. Like if a player oversteps home plate and then is assisted back, are they safe? Are they out? No matter if it's the last out of the game or not. This is a large stage. I was happy with the way they called it. I don't think it's the correct call, but I never would have wanted to see UCLA's season ended and those seniors on that UCLA team, their careers ended because of a technicality where you step over home plate. It's unfortunate. Once the ball leaves the yard, it's a dead ball anyway. So there's a lot of unique stuff, but they do have to tighten that up so there isn't so much, well, what about this and what about that, and all these things that make for a 13 to 15 minute basically challenge of the play. So there were a couple of really interesting calls on that. Even like I said, starting with the infield fly, the runner actually advanced to third, stepped on third, but then took herself into the dugout, and that's why she was called out. If she would have touched home plate on the way to the dugout, she would have scored. I mean, and so it's just bizarre because Tennessee actually watched her do that. So Tennessee didn't know the rules either. So we're all
trying to figure it out.
Exactly. Those are things you can't really make up. But I do feel like, the home runs and stuff like that, they need to really tighten it up and make it, if this, then that, no ambiguous type of, situations.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to give you a little power here. If you could snap your fingers right now and change anything about college softball, what would your decision be?
I think right away the first thing I would do is I'd put the safety bag down at first base because we have too many collisions, we have too many tight calls, we have too many. Is the runner in the running lane, or she's got to come back into fair? I mean, that just creates a whole hairball of problems. That if you just put that base, we play it at the international level, the highest level of our game in the Olympics. We play with that bag, and it gives you a clear lane for the runner to, that's your bag, you're running down the line on anything on the infield, and then the defender gets the white bag. So we even have it in college baseball. We've had this on the docket. It's actually been usable for the last 2 years, but we just haven't moved forward. To me, that's a number one that we need to do. I think we need to move forward with that.
What do you think the hang up is? Because I know a lot of it depends on the coaches and having to vote. Why has this not already become a thing? Because we've heard coaches who are for it be very vocal about it. I know Coach Murphy's been that way. There have been a lot of coaches when they've gotten on board with this idea who've really spoken about it loudly and publicly.
Well, I think part of it was, some people were saying it was budgetary concerns because of the cost of the bag. It's really not that much. When you look at the cost of potentially a student athlete being injured and, could ruin their career or obviously end their season, we need to do something for the safety of the athletes. I think the umpires want it. We've talked to a lot of umpires. They want it. I'm really not 100% sure what the holdup is. I think at one point they said it looked like too immature-ish or amateurish because maybe they play it at the youth level, little league level. It's like, at the elite level, like in Japan, in the pro league, where everybody gets down the line in like 2.5, 2.6 seconds and every play is bang, bang at first base. We used it. We needed to have it because everything is exploding at first base so quickly that it just helps the game out. So I think the biggest limiting cause is potentially been budgets or a couple of uninformed coaches that don't understand how important it is at the elite level to have that bag.
Yeah, and baseball's got it too.
Exactly.
So it looks fine on TV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, because the bag is literally in the runner's lane where the runners are supposed to be anyway. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully very soon.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit to NIL. Obviously, it's been a big conversation this week here in OKC.
Yeah.
What are your biggest concerns and I guess the things that intrigue you the most about how college softball is shifting specifically in the NIL era?
Right. So I think immediately the NIL can give a team an opportunity to compete at the elite level. And we're seeing that with Texas Tech. They didn't even make the NCAA tournament last year. They were one of the first four out. They pick up Nyjah, new coach, Jerry Glasgow. He's done a great job. He brought in some of his Louisiana players. I mean, so it's just opportunity to build something very quickly. It's really not new, though. Oklahoma has done this the last 4, 5, 6 years. If you go back and look at every championship that they've won over the last couple years, they've brought in a transfer pitcher. And those pitchers have received money. Now, maybe not the money that Nyjah Kennedy received this year, not $1 million, but they still received money to come. And who wouldn't want to go play at Oklahoma, because you got a great coaching staff, opportunity to win a national championship with a great offense behind you. So as a pitcher, that's like a dream job. You're in the circle, you have the pressure, but you don't have that much pressure when your team is putting up, 8 runs a game for you. So, so there's bonuses. I think it's actually created more parity because more teams have been able to pick up pitchers and become relevant very quickly. The downside of it is that teams are spending money to almost, some people say, to buy championships or buy their ability to be a good team. So, I think there needs to be some checks and balances. I think they need to put a cap. We have salary caps in professional sports. We should have caps of some sorts. And I think they have. They've come back and said, I think it's $25 million now per school. And I would imagine the majority of that will go toward football programs, basketball programs. But still, there are some universities that say, hey, women's sports are important to us, so we're gonna pay our women. We're gonna pay our women basketball players, our softball pitchers. Softball is a sport where you can bring in a big bopper hitter or a really good pitching arm, and it makes you relevant very quickly, right? Mm-hmm. Some sports, it's not quite as much, but in the sport of softball, you bring in a hitting pitcher like, Nyjah Kennedy, and all of a sudden you're relevant in the circle as well as in the batter's box. So checks and balances, I think, like everything in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And also with new stuff beyond the horizon as well, all these players have decisions to make. I want to transition to the AUSL.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the Pro League attempted many times over the years. What is it that has to happen for the AUSL to be sustained and stay viable in the college in the pro sports space?
So they obviously have good financial backing. That's a big part of it. They now have a relationship with Major League Baseball. Automatically gives you credibility, marketing, makes eyeballs relevant and on the sport, which is super important. To me, the limiting factor has always been stadiums. We need facilities. You cannot have a professional league if you do not have professional facilities to play. And our best facilities are at the collegiate level, and most of those were built because of Title IX. And Oklahoma City is the anomaly. We have this beautiful, massive stadium, but we need stadiums in communities for professional teams to be supported. And, I've been kind of pounding my head on the wall for years now. It's exhausting. Trying to get communities to reinvest back in the sport, because a lot of money flows out of the sports. And when you start to realize and understand bed tax and government money and how money flows in and out of sports, youth sports, the sport of softball at the grassroots level spends a lot of money on bed tax and all these things that if we're not raising our hand and asking for that money to be reinvested back into communities via facilities, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And we've done that for 30-something years. We have not raised our hand enough. We've got some good city ball parks, recreational fields, which is great for the community, but it's not, you would never play a Major League Baseball game on a community park, right? You need a stadium, you need a professional environment, and that's what we need for our sport. Now, I'm not saying we need stadiums that hold 35,000 people, but it would be really nice if we had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 communities around the country that had stadiums that held anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 people, with the ability to expand maybe another 4,000 for championships in the outfield. So I think it's just, really getting a mindset and having someone who's a visionary to say, all right, 5 years from now and 10 years from now, what does the sport of softball look like? What do we want it to look like? And I think that's what we need to move forward. That's why, in my opinion, we have not really developed a true good sticking, professional league.
But the stadium piece, what an interesting opportunity this is then with the SEC voting the other day to go to a neutral site SEC softball tournament.
Yes.
I think 27 is when they're gonna hopefully get that started. But if there's a way to have a facility that they can at least start planning to have that be the home for that event in the future, that is exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. And the reason it's important is because as wonderful as the SEC tournament is, it's very distracting for the facilities that actually end up hosting it, right? The money, the team can't practice on their field right before regionals, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. And that's why the city of Clearwater, we've been actually working to get about $20 to $25 million reinvested in the Eddie Seymour. So it's actually 4 small stadium fields. So then if you have a complex like that, now you could have an SEC tournament where and some coaches don't like to play double headers, but you have the ability, if you have weather or whatever, that you can play multiple games in a day, shorten the length of the tournament, so you're still playing, but have the opportunity to have a facility that can basically work any way that you want to work it. But yeah, it'll be interesting. There's some good facilities that are baseball facilities that get turned into softball facilities in Alabama. But again, that doesn't help the sport of softball. We need softball specific facilities to be built for us.
All right, last thing, and then I'll let you go.
Right.
Let's ask something OKC specific.
Okay.
When you come to town, is there anywhere in particular when you roll in that you say, I've got to go here, I've got to eat here, got to get my coffee here? Is there any spot that you found in OKC?
Yeah, I like Mahogany Steakhouse. I go there. They're great. There's the one here at the Omni that we go. There's also a steakhouse here, Bob's. It's a unique name right now. Mickey Mantle's. We used to go to Mickey Mantle's a lot. Haven't had a chance to get there this year. It really depends on what crew I'm working. If I'm day crew or night crew, and day crew, you definitely have an opportunity to go to dinners. And night crew, you're working all the time.
You might be home at 2 a.m.
Exactly.
Who knows?
Yeah, and you're looking for the coffee spot, not the steak joint. It's funny, this year's been so busy. I haven't really done a whole lot of must-go-to spots, but usually I do have a lot of friends in the city, so my must-go-to spots are visiting with my friends.
Yeah, that's true. I bet you do know a lot of, Stillwater, not that far.
Not that far away,
yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome. Michele Smith here on Softball America. Michele, have a great call on the Championship Series Game 1 tonight. Thanks for hopping on.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.